It is every filmmaker's dream to have your film bought and distributed. If you're anything like me, you would make films for pretty much nothing at all, just because you're passionate about the art form. I just love shooting films and making work. With that said, it's pretty darn nice when your films are funded or you end up selling them once you're done. Not only for the monetary gain, but also for the distribution and the knowledge that a lot more people will actually see your work on a major platform. And there's no bigger streamer and platform than Netflix. And my wife and filmmaking partner and I have been lucky enough to sell 2 films to Netflix. And doing so resulted in getting way more eyeballs on our films than we ever thought was possible, and also getting nominated for an Academy Award, winning an Emmy Award, and receiving offers to direct or shoot other feature films. While there is no tried and true formula for getting your film sold and distributed by a major streamer, looking back and studying what has been successful for other filmmakers in the past half-decade, there are some lessons we can learn from the process. So at the end of this video, you have a good idea of what it takes to sell a film to a major streamer. All right, let's do it. This video is sponsored by MusicBed. Hi, my name is Curran Sheldon, and I'm an Oscar-nominated and 2-time Emmy-winning filmmaker. I just recently launched a members-only page on this channel where you can get exclusive access to members-only content, as well as a full 90-minute course on setting up great-looking documentary interviews. So consider becoming a channel member. It really helps support the channel and allows me to keep making these free videos. All right, back to Netflix. Before we get started, I want to point out 2 things. The first is that there is a difference to getting a film on Netflix and selling a film to Netflix. The former is getting a film on Netflix by getting a short-term license, and the latter is actually getting your film bought by Netflix directly, therefore becoming a Netflix original and only being on Netflix. If you hear this noise before the film, then it's a Netflix original. The second point is that the streaming landscape has changed dramatically since 2017 and 2018 when we were able to get these 2 films bought. Netflix Originals was once reserved for premiere film and television. They wanted awards and wanted to be prestige like HBO. Obviously, ever since 2020, that has changed. Yes, Netflix still makes tons of high-quality films and TV. They're just harder to find and mixed with loads of other murder shows. Selling to Netflix has also changed, and I have the proof, which I'll share at the end of this video. But first, let's go through how we pulled it off and what you need to do to make it a reality as well. We made a deliberate choice to level up, or we called on all of our talents to actually go out and make a big project. To be clear, our goal wasn't to sell to Netflix. Our goal was to make a great film. Up until the point we started to work on our 2 films that would ultimately sell to Netflix, I had mostly focused on travel documentaries and branded content, while my wife Elaine had focused on journalistic films and shorts. We had never made a feature film, and honestly had never made a film longer than 10 minutes. But we made the deliberate choice to find a story that warranted a feature-length film, and then invested in the personal education it would require to actually achieve it. When you're used to shooting short-form content that takes days or weeks, it is a huge shift in mindset to tell yourself that you are going to work on something for 2 years or more to achieve something deep and meaningful. We also decided that we wouldn't wait for funding or money to start making the film. We moved back to our home state of West Virginia so we can make the film for a little more than gas money and our time. So step 1, you have to choose to make a film and dedicate yourself to seeing it through, with or without support. And then you have to find a great story that is worth spending years to bring to the screen. Speaking of making a great movie, make sure you focus on one of the key aspects of a great film, and that's incredible music. I've seen beautifully shot films, great lighting, great camera work that don't truly connect because the music just felt generic. That's why I use MusicBed, my favorite music licensing platform, because it's not just a random library of songs. You're working with real artists, music that actually has emotion, intention, and identity. And when the music feels real, your films feel real. And I also use MusicBed because they have made a strong statement against generative AI, a growing trend in filmmaking that I want no part of. I want music made by real humans that fit the genuine stories that I personally am trying to tell. And what makes you and your work stand out today, especially in the age of AI, is not just pretty visuals. It's great stories with authentic characters that make the audience feel something. And outside of great character arcs and in-scene drama, there's no better way to heighten the emotion of your films than with great music. Click the link below, start your MusicBed 14-day free trial, and start using music that has identity and soul. We didn't realize this was a step we were taking until after the fact, but it is a good lesson to learn. Both being from West Virginia in 2015 and 2016, we were constantly reading articles or seeing friends and family members back home posting and talking about the opioid crisis that was raging across the country, and specifically in our home region of Appalachia. It seemed like every news outlet was descending on our home state to, somewhat unfairly, show the carnage. People overdosing, poverty, hopelessness, and it just rubbed us the wrong way. We knew there were people who were doing amazing things on the ground, trying to help, and we wanted to highlight those voices, while not shying away from difficult and painful truths of addiction and the struggles in the region. We were presented with a chance to follow the grand opening of a farming-based addiction recovery center just 45 minutes from where I grew up. We loved the story around the founder, Kevin Blankenship, and were instantly hooked when we met some of the first residents. While this recovery center was the jumping off point, we knew there was a larger story to tell about the opioid crisis, so we also started filming in Huntington, West Virginia, known as the overdose capital of the country, and that's where we met Jan Radar, one of the great heroes of our film, Heroin. While to us, the opioid and addiction crisis seemed to be at a crescendo when we started filming, it wasn't until the films were nearly completed that it actually started becoming front-page news around the country. This was a bit of luck and timing on our part, but it definitely helped in buyers' interest in the film, having two deep, empathetic looks on the biggest topic in the country in 2017 and 2018. It would be like working on a film about pandemics that you were finishing in January 2020, or the advancement of AI that you finished in 2026. There are some things you can't time, but if you're always looking for stories and have your finger on the pulse, you may be able to replicate this approach as well. Step 3, we played the game. Before these two films, this is how we worked. Find a person or topic we were interested in, and then spend the time to go make the film. Shoot, edit, release. That's it. No outside influence or opinions. We just got it done. This is a great way to do a lot of work and make it the way you want it. The problem is, if you make work in a vacuum, then nobody will know it exists or care about it when it is done. So very difficult to get into film festivals or be seen by any distributors. I relearned this lesson recently when I made Beatdown, my micro-budget fiction feature. Along with our co-producers John and Holly Temple, we just made the film how we wanted and when we wanted. And when it was done, nobody knew it existed and releasing it became a challenge. But with Recovery Boys and Heroin, we made a deliberate effort to play the game, meaning the feature documentary creation game. While I'm not a huge fan of this track, it does exist, and it goes a bit like this. Prep pitch documents galore, get a well-known producer attached, apply for all the grants, apply for all the pitches, go to film festivals, do the 5-minute pitch meetings, constantly be updating your deck as you film and edit, reapply over and over and over again, etc., etc., etc. We applied to tons of grants to try to get funding. We looked up all the public and private pitches and applied to those too. The result is that you get rejected by 98% of what you apply for, but at least now everyone knows you are making a film. Often we would get rejection letters that said something along the lines of, really love the pitch, film looks great, try again next year. Next year? But that's the kind of game you're playing. It's a multi-year long game. While we got rejected from almost everyone, we were able to raise $30,000 from a few different grants. But the biggest result actually happened at one of the pitches. So every year, a pitch competition called Good Pitch selects a small number of films to pitch their film on stage for 7 minutes in front of hundreds of industry professionals and funders. We were lucky enough to be chosen for Good Pitch, and an executive producer from Netflix was in the audience, and she really liked our pitch and the premise of our film. And she and another producer at Netflix got in touch with us and got the conversation going. If we did not apply for all of these grants and pitches, we never would have been in that room. And ultimately, having the Netflix EPs see our pitch was one of the main reasons we ultimately sold the film to them a few months later. So the main takeaway is to be visible, be dogged, and continue to make the work. Apply for everything, even if rejection is almost certain. And speaking of Netflix executive producers, one of the biggest factors in getting into film festivals or getting distribution of your film is your own personal relationships. While working on our dozens of short documentaries early in our careers, we were lucky enough to be around when the New York Times launched their OpDocs Shorts program. OpDocs, now a mainstay in the short documentary space, was a pretty revolutionary release platform in 2012-2013. Before OpDocs, there were very few places you could get your short documentary seen by a large audience. But with a platform as large as the New York Times, that changed for a lot of filmmakers. Their licensing budget was, and usually still is, pretty minuscule, but it is a great place to get your work seen. OpDocs was created by a filmmaker and producer named Jason Spingarnkoff, and my wife and I were lucky enough to make 3 separate short documentaries for the OpDocs slate. First, she made a short documentary that was a collection from her expansive interactive documentary Hollow, and then they commissioned her to make a film about the legalization of marijuana in Colorado, and then finally I pitched a short on the Irish poet Seamus Heaney for their Lives They Lived series. While none of these films were huge career breakthroughs, we did work closely with Jason at the New York Times, and he liked our films. A few years later, when Netflix was just starting to make original content, who did they turn to help their nonfiction division? Yep, Jason from the New York Times. So even though the New York Times didn't result in huge successes or paydays, suddenly we knew a top executive at the fastest growing spender in all of entertainment. The main takeaway is that you never know where the people you work with are going to go next. So even if it's a small budget or a lower level publication, do your best work because people will remember those who stand out. Step 5 is make a great film. Yes, there are plenty of films on Netflix or that get into some of the best film festivals in the world that I would not deem as very good. But that is more of a matter of taste on style of subject matter than anything else. They are good or great to someone, and that someone may work at Netflix or Apple or HBO. But you have to make a film that someone thinks is a great film. There are just too many average films out there to get distribution for anything you yourself don't think is great. I think the biggest barrier to this for a lot of creators is the inability to recognize their own shortcomings and their inability to pivot to a better film when it presents itself. For the first 6 months of filming Recovery Boys, we thought it was a father-son story, focusing on Kevin, who opened the recovery center, and his son, who was in recovery himself. But after meeting the first residents of the recovery center and filming their own journey that was unfolding in real time, we realized that everything we had filmed for the first 20 days of production wasn't where the true story was. It was with the very visceral and currently happening stories of the new residents. And that pivot often results in having to have hard conversations with participants in your films or people you filmed with for a long time that they may not be included. And frankly, most people aren't willing to pivot from their original idea. I see so many filmmakers who refuse to have these hard conversations, either with themselves or the participants in their films, in order to make the best possible film. There is a great adage, best idea wins, and that's probably not your original idea. So get out of your own way and make a great film. Now for some reality, why you won't sell your film to Netflix. So all of this is to say, is it even possible to sell your film to Netflix anymore? And the answer obviously is yes. There are a handful of independent filmmakers that still do this every year, especially in the short documentary space. Often for Netflix, these short films are solely to try and win awards, Oscars and Emmys. And they have historically been very good at that because if you have a short film on Netflix, chances are it's going to get about 10x the views you could get for a short film anywhere else. But the reality is that today, Netflix is way more focused on mainstream content. True crime, celebrity, sensationalism, not the kind of work I do or want to do. And instead of buying films from film festivals or working directly with independent creators, which they used to do a lot more of, they now just work with giant production companies to put out their multi-million-dollar true crime series. So is it even a goal anymore to sell to Netflix or HBO or Apple? It is no secret that the industry has been cratering and the streamers aren't buying anymore. PBS has been stripped to its core, but has historically been a great partner for documentarians. But from 2017 to 2022, I did have a string of films and series, including Recovery Boys and Heroin, as well as Phoenix Rising, Business of Drugs, Keep This Between Us, that was funded solely by streamers. But that is few and far between now. We have reverted back to how it worked before the golden age of nonfiction on streaming. But if you want to sell your film or even get into a film festival, this roadmap still applies. So the roadmap looks like this. Deliberately choose to go out and make a feature doc, focus on a newsworthy topic or something that could have a wide audience, and play the documentary game. Apply to all of the grants, pitches, and everything in between. Make sure you're building connections and utilizing those connections. And then finally, learn to pivot and let the film tell you what it needs. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Wait, one more thing. Make sure you use the newest and best camera, otherwise nobody will buy your film. Not really, nobody cares. The other option is to make your film and release it yourself. So if you want to watch an awesome film about professional boxers in Appalachia that's visceral, raw, and gritty, check out Country Brawlers, my feature documentary that now you can find on Apple, Amazon, or wherever you rent your movies. All right, see you in the next video.
I really believe that I'm gonna get one of these fights where they go, oh look, here's this guy from Kentucky. Should be an easy win. I turn the tables on.
You can't go 10 rounds with this guy.
Maybe I won't, but maybe I will.
Nobody runs that fast, nobody trains that hard. You might not be better than the other guy, but you're damn in better shape than the other guy. I'm Corky Salyers. Nobody else does what I do. Pound him down! Push him, Melvin! We trained for this!
You know, there is something to me.